Hello and welcome to Tai'Shar Manethrin, Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Will.
Here we are discussing the show, our mostly monthly, I would say, almost monthly update of what's going on with the television program. So we're going to do that today. First off, I think Will had something he wanted to discuss.
So a little housekeeping. You may have noticed that we missed a few weeks back when we hadn't talked about missing a week. And that was because my laptop, which is old enough to be in like 7th grade.
Oh man, I hear that.
Was giving me some attitude, as they tend to at that age. I was super frustrated that I was having so much trouble with it because we had an episode that we had recorded and it was taking me a while to get out. So I just kept having to put off getting it finished because when I would come back to it, the laptop would be acting up. Now, anyway, short story long, I realized I don't have enough cash to get a new one. So I talked with Sam and we agreed it was time to give you guys the opportunity to add your support to the podcast. So here are a few things about this that I want to make totally clear. If you can't or don't want to donate, no worries. We still want you listening to the podcast. We are going to continue to ask folks, so I hope that doesn't bother you. We're glad for everybody to continue to listen for free. Number 2, we're not doing a Patreon because we barely have enough time to do the single episodes about an episode a week that we've been trying to do.
Amen to that.
And we have no plans to do anything extra at all. So I want to make it clear that if you donate, you're not getting anything extra. Number 3 of the things we want to communicate, if you choose to donate, please know that we will still occasionally take a week or even a month off. And if it's going to be longer than that, if for some reason we decide that we need to put a longer pause, obviously we're going to pause all the donations at that point. So no worries on that. But just to let you guys know, we're going to try to always communicate it. Hey, through our socials and everything. Hey, we're having to skip this week. We'll be with you next week. But we're not changing our MO, which is, hey, if we get too busy, we're going to take a week off, and we might take a month off, sometime this summer or early in the fall, and maybe at the end of the year like we did last year. It's just according to our schedule. And that was just kind of some stipulations that I wanted to throw out there so you guys understand. While we're giving you guys the opportunity to support it, the podcast is not actually changing at all. So you may ask, what are the advantages of donating? Well, the short answer is you get the podcast. If you want the podcast to continue, then donating helps make that possible. It does cost about $300 a year to cover our expenses between hosting and a handful of other smaller expenses. On top of that, like I said, I need a new laptop soon, and the thing that I use my laptop for the most currently is really the podcast. So I'd like to get a new one so I can get episodes out to you guys in a timely manner and keep the podcast going. In the off chance that we get all of that paid for, everything else will go to compensate Sam and I for the hours it takes preparing, recording, and editing the show. If we get a lot more than we're expecting, which I don't think is going to happen, then I might look at doing some more stuff with our website, maybe making some merch available and things like that. So anyway, thank you guys so much for considering it. I'll let Sam explain how you can go about donating.
So on our website, tsmpodcast.com, there is a donate button at the top left of the page. You can donate on routine, reoccurring. Thank you. I was going to get around to it. It was an R word. If you'd like, weekly, monthly, annually, one off is fine. We appreciate that. You can be sent a reminder, which is good if you're just wanting to make a one time. So if you'd like to support our little podcast, now's your chance. And thank you to everybody. We appreciate hearing from you folks and enjoy doing this, and probably enjoy just talking about the stuff if we didn't even have anyone listening. But
right,
it is kind of nice to have folks who tune in and are engaged what we're talking about. It's kind of fun. So thank you,
Right.
everybody. Definitely appreciate that.
We appreciate you guys, and even if you aren't able to donate, choose not to.
Totally cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. We're just wanting to make that available to those who want to help us keep it going.
So I guess the other thing I wanted to mention is spoiler. This episode, I'd meant to mention that at the intro. Since this is a show update episode, just be warned, we may spoil all of your things.
Right.
Mainly related to the Wheel of Time, but spoil you in other ways. Maybe we'll buy you a bunch of candy. Spoil you.
We could spoil the third season of How I Met Your Mother.
Oh yeah, that's very possible.
Right. We could spoil the Pirates of Dark Water for you.
Oh man, some vintage Cartoon Network there.
Yes, that was a deep cut. It only lasted one season, so
I just remember there was some part that really upset me because some old lady drank some potion to make herself young again, so she could woo this young guy, and then it faded away and she became old again and died. Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of grim.
Yeah, it was definitely more adult than in some of its themes.
Totally.
Anyway, on to the show update. There's a lot of stuff to talk about because we haven't done an update this month yet, and we're going to get to kind of the older stuff in a few seconds. But I want to talk about one of the biggest things right up front, which is the possibility that we have a rough idea of a release date.
Heyo.
So we don't actually have a release date, but we have a pretty good idea of when, a window of when the show will be released. So Amazon put a page up for the new edition of Eye of the World to be released on November 4th. Considering there have already been two other new editions of the first book, one when they did the new single color kind of series, and then they did what was it, the 25th or whatever, the anniversary edition that they put out. And those have come out, both of them have come out within the last 18 months. It seems pretty safe to say that this will be the TV tie-in edition, which, they always do with TVs and movies. When a TV or movie comes out based on a book, they'll release a version of the book that usually features footage or screenshot. That would be awesome if it had footage somehow on the front.
I know, right?
But a screenshot or art from the show.
Right.
So it really seems like that this is likely an indicator of the approximate time we can expect when the show will premiere, because it seems like that would coincide with the premiere of the show. So the question is if they're releasing it after the premiere or before.
Right. Before, yeah. I would think before.
You're right.
Seems likely.
Yeah. Either way, most of the other Wheel of Time content creators agree that we're looking at a window of,
holidays.
No earlier than late October, but yeah, through December. I like to add that I don't think it's out of the question for this to be a pre-Christmas promotion, trying to get it out there into the Christmas season. Therefore, I could actually see it being January, start of January.
Sure.
I think that while that may seem like a pretty wide window, I think also closer to that date, either direction is more likely. It's just that we don't know for sure. So
yeah. Exciting though. I saw they wrapped production, right? I read that. Or filming, sorry, not production.
Yes, principal photography. That was actually the next bit of news I was going to talk about, which I think is interesting. Considering we don't have a release date yet.
Mm-hmm.
It says to me that there's still something variable in production that is keeping them from feeling committed to a release date. So whether that's pickup shots or just really wanting to get the CG and
editing,
post-production all just perfect, especially since this is the first season, and I guess it does kind of make sense. They're trying to see how it all can roll.
Yeah.
And also this is Amazon's, I feel like it's really their first big swing. They've done other shows, obviously.
Right.
And obviously the Lord of the Rings is going to be an even bigger swing.
I don't know what was the budget for The Boys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't
probably not as high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, 10 million per episode apparently.
But still, we're probably closer to almost a movie budget per episode.
Jeez, the Lord of the Rings is apparently a total budget of $1 billion.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that I think gives us reason to believe that, yes, indeed, Wheel of Time's budget is going to be pretty large, even though Lord of the Rings is going to shatter the record for most expensive TV show of all time, which actually concerns me
Yeah.
more than anything, because you know what had held the record before it? Season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Hey-o.
Money obviously plays a role in production quality, but past a point, there's clearly a law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually not excited about that number when I hear it. As a huge fan of the books and the Peter Jackson,
I'm just not
movies.
Excited about it. I don't know why.
Well,
I'm just not.
I can tell you why. It's because it's not based off of Tolkien's writings, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be new material,
Right.
very loosely pulling from various sources within his writings, but there's no story that he wrote that this is going to be firmly
right.
based off of. And it's not Lord of the Rings. The name being like continually calling it the Lord of the Rings is a little frustrating to me, because the story of the Lord of the Rings has been told.
Yeah. We don't need that adapted anymore, really. I tried to read the Silmarillion. It's like the Bible.
Yeah, the Silmarillion is like an encyclopedia.
Uh-huh.
The only thing about that large number is I'm hopeful that means that they're going to throw a lot into Wheel of Time, which every indication that we've had is that, yes, indeed, they are planning on spending a lot on Wheel of Time, not nearly as much as Lord of the Rings. But I guess what it shows to me, it indicates a certain amount of commitment toward these fantasy shows that require a lot of world building.
Right.
And Rafe has indicated that they do have a sizable budget. So, but yes, indeed, they have wrapped production or shooting, principal photography for season 1. There may be some pickups left. Not sure about that, but and in theory, anyway, they have all they need to make a first season happen as far as footage goes. So, which is crazy. It's funny. I mean, here we are. I guess it was 18, almost. We're like 20 months ago that they started production, something like that.
It's a different time.
Yeah, closer to 2 years ago. And they thought, okay, well, we're going to shoot for 9 months, which is a long shoot for 8 episodes.
Yeah.
But anyway,
here we are. It's kind of like Black Widow.
Right. Yeah. I'm finally getting there. At this point, I'm like, I don't even know if I think Black Widow even exists. I mean, I've seen the trailer.
Right. Just the trailer.
Yeah, I just think they made a trailer.
It's like, it was so weird they were making it in the first place, considering, what happened at Endgame. It's like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah,
like, why are we making this movie? Did you just promise ScarJo like you would do this and just following through?
Yeah.
Like, see, we do make movies about ladies, starring ladies.
Yep. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to that one.
Man, more MCU. I'm all about it. It was just confusing. Like when they announced it right after Endgame or around then, it's like, wait, what?
Right. Next, Rafe confirmed last week that season 2 has officially been greenlit.
Hooray.
And there are rumors that it might start production as early as next month, which totally actually makes complete sense. They've been doing post-production and pre-production on season 2 and post-production on season 1 all during quarantine and trying to make as much use of time as possible.
Yeah, it's like no matter what, when you've got this much invested in a show, like you're going to get 2 seasons.
Right.
Like it's just, it is a vote of confidence, but also that just was always going to happen, I feel like.
Right. Rafe talked about being in the writer's room, back in the writer's room pretty early on, working on season 2, which some people went to, season 2 greenlit. And it's like, well, no, they're writing it.
Yeah, they need to go ahead and have that done, have that in their minds as they're finishing season 1.
Exactly. And so have some kind of roadmap, which
nobody wants to pull a Lost.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Let's start a season of television and that has all these questions and get people hooked, and then have no plan for where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other part of the rumor with it's starting in June, it looks like that it'll be running through March of 2022, which is a similar timeline as far as the number of months to the original plan for the first season shooting.
Right. Heck yeah.
So we're probably looking at another 8-episode season. I could see them possibly cramming another couple of episodes into that timeline now that they've kind of gotten their rhythm. But it seems more likely that they're going to do 8 episodes.
Yeah.
And as long as they're good and they cover all the coolest scenes, I'm happy with a shorter season.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
So before diving into Rafe's latest Q&A, we've got to take a step back because, like I said, it's been a while since we've done a show update, and we haven't talked about the land teaser.
Oh, wow. Fair enough. That's funny that we haven't.
Everybody else has. If you're following any of the other fantasy news.
Yeah, they've like dissected it, and like I think I don't know if it was that one or the Moraine teaser where they found a Trolloc in the background. Like they zoomed in and like found a land fighting a Trolloc. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not much to be said that hasn't already been said in some of these other things. You've got a picture of Lan. We see what he's going to look like. He's wearing the Hedori. There was some discussion among a couple of people I know who read the Wheel of Time about the exact proper way to wear the Hedori. And so this,
pray tell.
Yeah, I don't actually remember the details of it. It was like, okay, well, does it sit on his head more like a crown, like over his hair, or does it? Because some fan art, maybe even one of the official art things, has a picture of it being more like a headband with the hair over it, if that makes sense. With long hair,
some hair over it. Yeah.
But anyway, this is more like almost like a crown, like the way it sits on his head.
Yeah.
And then you got the land bun, which totally works for his aesthetic. Where we do see, of course, that face carved from stone. Yeah,
the land bun really works for Daniel Henney. Like, I'm glad that they went with Daniel Henney, or someone like of Asiatic descent. It just really works like that. It wasn't something I would have thought about, but it definitely gives him kind of like a samurai look, which is not, to be fair, it was never something I'd pictured, but I now completely see it.
Right. It totally works. Having watched this same 5 seconds over and over again, and like, oh, was there anything more to mine out?
If only.
Thinking we're seeing Trolloc raid at Winter Night. It looks like the scabbard for his sword is on his back. That I don't know what else can be mined out of this.
Right.
It's exciting to see these little clips, though. I mean, I'd like to get a for real trailer, but I'm happy to get these little bits if that's what they're willing to, drop some crumbs from the master's table. Another thing that happened is that there was a different version of the Moraine teaser that was released elsewhere. I don't know if that was an accident. I'm not clear on that.
Yeah.
But yes, it's the same. Looks like the same shot that was in her teaser. It's just a wider.
Right, just zoomed out a little bit.
Yeah,
you can see more of her. Yeah,
and so you can see her clothing, and it looks like in the background we get a kind of blurry-ish image of a Trolloc and fighting in the background, maybe with Lan. So there was a lot of discussion about her wardrobe in this because it looks a little different maybe than I think a lot of people were thinking. It doesn't have the medieval Europe look right off the bat. I think there's a couple of things. Most people seem to agree on the theory anyway that this is probably her in her almost pajamas.
Yeah.
Because it was nighttime. They were probably
got out of their bed and started fighting.
Right. So that's one thing to consider.
Like, Wheel of Time was never medieval like that. Yeah, that's the thing that like that I think it's like assumed to be because it's like a
Right.
one of the household names of high fantasy series, but no.
Right. That's right. If anything, it almost, especially as we get towards the end, it almost starts tipping into a little bit of steampunk.
Yeah, totally does. Yeah, like the Kyrian school,
Right. And I mean, it just kind
Age
of
of Legends craziness.
right. Yeah. And of course, yeah, Age of Legends is kind of a mashup of almost sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, it's like technology fueled by magic.
And so I like the idea that maybe, the clothes they're wearing doesn't immediately say, old school high fantasy.
Yeah, good. Yeah, let's distance ourselves from that.
Right. That's one place that we shouldn't be at all upset that
Right.
it feels different.
That was never supposed to be the feel.
Right. As long as they have ornate dresses when there are supposed to be ornate dresses,
and they smooth them.
Exactly. So, and by the way, Yosha posted on his Instagram a picture of the Emmons Field 5 together. It does look like Zoe has the braid.
Nice. Good.
So the braid that we were all kind of waiting for.
She is great in Power Rangers Ninja Steel or whatever Ninja something. But that show is torture to watch. Actual torture. I've been watching a lot of it lately, not of my own accord. Like when they turned it on, I was like, "Oh, cool, Zoe Robbins! I can, get the chance to see her act," and she's great in it. I mean, the dialogue is not much to work with, but right. Otherwise, the show is just a hot garbage. Really, there's one dude who's a country music star or something, and he's always wearing a cowboy hat, and it really bothers me when they morph. I'm like, I just want him to keep his cowboy hat.
Yeah, you just have
just
the cowboy
morph
hat.
Yeah, just keep it on and just hold it on there when he's doing flips and stuff. But no, it gets morphs away with everything else,
right?
And it comes back later.
There you go.
So anyway, that's my rant about Power Rangers today.
I'm so glad you added that little spice. One more little bit before we get to the Q&A. Wad Up reports that some leaked production art seems to confirm that the Ways are probably going to be in season 1, which we kind of knew.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The leaked image of the Waygate, or what we think is probably the Waygate.
Right.
So on to the Q&A. We're not going to go through all the questions. We're going to go through a little more than half of them. So Rafe did another Q&A on Instagram to celebrate the green lighting of season 2.
Right on.
So here are the questions.
Yeah.
Here are the ones that provided us with some new-ish info.
So what's the average running time of each episode of The Wheel of Time? And the answer, I didn't know if you were going to answer, if I was going to.
You go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Rafe.
I mean, Rafe isn't here to answer, so
I will pretend to be Rafe also.
Okay.
I'll pretend to be me, and I'll pretend to be Rafe. Okay. Amazon is great because each episode doesn't have to hit an exact time like you do in network TV. And these episodes are epic, so we are clocking in between 50 and 65 minutes each. That checks out. That's similar to Game of Thrones, for example.
Right.
We're all over the place in the running time.
Yeah, and it's cool because, of course, even though we're talking about 8 episodes, the typical television drama length is about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you account for at least 15 minutes of commercials. And so it's between 40 and 45.
Right. So we're getting like an extra episode or some, depending on the length. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
One of the questions that was asked, somebody said, blink twice if a trailer is coming soon. And Rafe just posted an emoji with the eyes wide open.
Okay. Well, fair enough.
Doesn't seem likely. If the November, like late November release date is what it is, then I think we're probably looking at maybe September before we're going to get a trailer. That's my
more
guess.
of the CG touched up and
right.
Sure, that makes sense. Do the EF5, the Emmons Field 5 actors perform stunts on their own, or do they have stunt doubles? Everyone on the show has a stunt double, but most of our actors are really amazing with the physical stuff and doing their own stunts. I'm the only one who's always falling.
That's cool to hear.
Is he playing a Trolloc? Maybe
that'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
Maybe he has a reputation for. He was like, he did say something about how it was happy hour in Prague when he was doing this. So maybe that had something to do with it. It is cool to hear when people are wanting to do their own stunts. I mean, I hope they don't get hurt, but
right, man.
it shows a dedication to the.
Yeah, didn't Sebastian Stan have like some serious injuries in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? I think I read that.
Yeah, I think I heard that someplace too. Yeah, I mean, and I'm afraid it does happen from time to time. What character that didn't appear in season 1 and does appear in season 2 are you most excited about? And I love this answer. He says,
I know.
Starts with EL.
So Elida's not in season 1. Man, dang it.
And it's obviously Elida, Elaine, Elias.
Nice. I didn't even think of Elias. That's great.
Here's my theory, actually, is
all
that
three?
all three of them are going to show up in season 2.
That would fit, certainly.
And someone even pointed out that Ishamael's Age of Legends name was Elan.
Oh, man, that's great.
So I'm like...
we really do kind of want Ishamael to show up in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and
like I would not be okay, for example, if they made, like we've discussed with Logain being a big bad, if that was just it for season 1, that would not be okay. That would be a mistake.
Yeah, I hope we get to see at least, some by Elzamon or something. And it seems likely that even if because if they're going to wait till like Rand gets to the Stone of Tyr and only have one big fight.
Yeah, sure.
Which would be fine, I think, anyway.
Yeah, it was a little confusing. It's like, haven't we already killed this dude? I thought we already killed this dude.
Twice?
Yeah, right.
Then I could see holding off, like, having the confrontation, but he needs to show up, if nothing else, at least in, like, the dream.
Totally.
And,
yeah, I mean, in the spirit of what Rafe has said is adapting the entire show, you can't have the whole first season not have Forsaken in it. I mean, come on, man. Do you have the plot of all the seasons roughly mapped out? Yeah, between season 1 and 2, we made a rough map of how the series could break down into seasons. It can always change, obviously, but important to know where we are going and how we are getting there. So we built it right if Amazon Prime Video keeps us around for the long haul. I'm sure it's quite a whiteboard drawing they've done.
Right. Yeah, I would love to see, like, okay, here's the plan.
Yeah, really.
My kind of take on, because as you just mentioned, the adapting the whole series rather than like going book by book, I think we're probably going to see a lot more fluidity as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Even in the first season. We'll see. Okay, will we see actual weaves or just the end result of channeling? And Rafe says, you're going to see it if you're a woman who can channel.
What?
Exactly. I was a little frustrated at this answer because I'm like, okay, we better see the weaves.
Yeah, that's really important. Yep.
First of all, we better see the weaves. Second of all, why not just, if you're gonna not answer, why not just not answer?
Right. Well, hasn't Rosamund Pike already alluded to something about that?
She posted in her Instagram stories an image that was kind of an abstract thing that said what weaves might look like. And so it seems likely to me, yeah, we're going to see the weaves.
Yeah, totally. How far should we get in the books if we don't want season 1 to spoil things for us? This question is so cleverly worded to trick me that I have to respond to it out of sheer respect.
I just wanted to put that in there just to reinforce kind of, that's what made me think, we're probably going to see a really like a peppering of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
From a lot of the books. Like, I think most of the course of what we see in season 1 is going to be from books 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we may get some from New Spring. And
yeah, which makes sense. I mean, if anything, that makes sense. Like, go ahead and have, especially if the show is going to sort of focus on Moraine, center around Moraine more than the Emond's Field 5, then you kind of have to. I mean, a little bit.
Right. Yeah, makes sense to me. Okay, how are you balancing numerous point of views in the books versus focusing on Rand? And Rafe says, as I've always said, we're adapting the whole series, like we've talked about, not just Eye of the World. And I finally think, and I really think this is an ensemble series. So the first season is as well. So that's good to hear. As you were just saying, it does seem like there is a focus on Moraine in this.
Yeah, right.
In this first season, but I like that he sees it all as an ensemble.
Yeah, that's important that he acknowledges that it is. So we will see Forsaken in season 1, which is a question I was just asking. Rafe says some people see Forsaken everywhere. ... Man, I hate it when people use ... I have people do that in emails. Every email ends with a ... I'm like, dude, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I was recording an interview with somebody last week, and later in the day, he messaged me and said, "It was nice talking to you." ... And I'm like,
ominous.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, here's what I take from this answer. I think we're going to see Baal Zaman.
I hope they're like, where's Waldo? Ravine kind of strolling through a shot, and we don't know it's him, but later it's Ravine. Like, oh, he was there in that shot.
Yes, I think we're going to see him. It's probably not going to be like front and center as much as hopefully in the latter seasons. So that's my guess.
Makes sense.
All right. So did any of the actors end up becoming fans of the books after getting cast? And Rafe says, I'm not going to spoil who, but 2 of the core cast are in a read-off right now, and I think one of them may have finished the series.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's what you want to hear, for sure.
Yeah, I would love to know who it is.
Wouldn't expect all of them to have read it before getting cast, but now that they're in it, like, yeah, that's good. That's enjoy the stuff. How many brands or Trollocs did you create for the show? We leaned into the books and tried to have the Trollocs have as much individual character as possible. My favorite is the one we call Betty. Excellent.
So we got Steve and Betty now.
Yeah, right.
Will season 2 take us to a lot of new locations? How big can the world get? Rafe says, best thing about the Wheel of Time is the world keeps getting deeper and deeper, and we got to deliver on the show, on that in the show.
Totally.
So that's exciting. We're going to get a bigger world in season 2, sounds like.
Will Lan's cool cloak be featured in the show? I love Lan's cloak in the show, but much like Aes Sedai agelessness, if it's an effect that's going to cost a fortune every time a character is on screen, it's a bad use of our money. Unless you want to see all of season 1 and the Wine Spring Inn, then you can have color changing cloaks. Like the Hateful Eight or something.
I was a little disappointed at this. I was hoping they would figure out some way to have them without
it being breaking the bank. Yeah.
Like, and I guess my thinking, and maybe they still will do this, is that they could possibly have it in a scene or 2. So he
just like loses it or doesn't wear it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Too fancy to wear out.
Right. Exactly. They've got to find ways to telegraph here. Here's an Aes Sedai. Here is a warder.
Right, because it's a pretty important part of the books. It's a fact that just a wolf-like grace, you can just,
Right.
Everyone has a wolf-like grace.
In like whatever, book 3, 4, when Perrin returns to Emond's Field and he sees Varen and Alana's warders, the way he recognizes them is because they're wearing the color-shifting clothes. And he says there has to be Aes Sedai here. So there's going to have to be something like that. And in similar vein, the fact that Aes Sedai are often recognized because of their agelessness.
The video game actually did a pretty good job with this. There's like some orders in it at one point, and their color shifting cloaks is just like they'll turn and then you just can't see them anymore. Like you can't see all but like his head, and then like he'll run and like it'll kind of like you can see him a little bit, like it'll like shift and you'll see his leg and then it'll shift back and you can't see him anymore. Like you'll see like an outline. I thought that it's pixelated from the early 2000s, but it was pretty cool.
I'll be curious to see if that shows up later at some point.
Sure.
So the last question that we're covering, who has been the hardest character to write for so far? And Rafe says Perrin is the hardest. His interior monologue in the book is the biggest part of his character, so bringing him out in the show is always something we have to build really consciously. Luckily, Marcus Rutherford just exudes Perrin every minute, so it makes our lives a lot easier.
Heck yeah. No, that makes sense, as it'd be tough to... We've talked about that, about the interior monologue, and how do you handle that? I mean, how does anybody ever handle that in TV and movies?
It makes sense for Matt and to a lesser degree Rand to speak their thoughts.
Sure.
Matt, of course, you could see him like never shutting up, and it would be well within character. Rand is enough of.
He's got someone to talk to.
yeah, exactly. You could have him having discussions with Luce Theron in his head. But yeah, Perrin is the most introverted, and I think that I can totally see why that would be a challenge, but sounds like he's confident. Rafe's confident. Marcus Rutherford's performance. So at least he says he is. All right. Moving on to our mailbag. We got just one message. A fellow named Adam sent us an email, and he had a couple of questions. So we got something to talk about. So he says, "Hey guys, love your podcast. I have 2 questions about the discussion on Saidine's weirdness during the battle against the Shan-Chan. We know that Saidar was weird after the use of the Bowl of the Winds and Elaine's failed unraveling of her gateway. And I always assumed that since the bowl was also channeling Saidine, even though objects can't channel the one power, that similar effects to Saidar would occur. So my first question is this: does Kalendor mess with how the one power acts, makes Weaves wiggle and uncontrollable, or is the weirdness around Abu Dar in using both Saidine and Saidar from the side effects of using the bowl? During the last battle, I don't remember reading that Saidar, Saidine, or the true power were uncontrollable while Rand was using Kalendor." And that's a great question.
Yeah, sure. Wow, that is interesting. I didn't think about they did keep mentioning Ibudar, and certainly the bowl was the big thing that happened there. I would say the first thing I would say is that the unraveling of the gateway was as much just Elaine not knowing what the heck she was doing.
Right.
But she did talk, so both she did talk about it, the weaves seeming like they were quivering, and also Avienda saying that the longer you took, the more that happened generally. So like you almost kind of wonder a little bit if like her exploded gateway was part of the like exacerbated the weirdness of Saidine and Saidar. That I didn't even thought about Kalendor in the last battle. It's been so long since I've read that. You can probably speak to that a little bit better than I can.
I would be curious to kind of get back to it because it's
interesting. That's a good point, Adam.
Yeah. Well, and if it is the Bowl of the Winds, if the Bowl of the Winds is doing something, we are told that Angreal don't channel the one power by themselves, that they focus it for a channeler.
Right, but a Angreal does.
Yes.
The Bowl of the Winds did, and so maybe like the taint from Saidine like seeped into Saidar a little bit. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like he was trying to convey that Jordan was trying to convey that Kalendor was to blame, but then again, they did mention it's like you can almost see it being both a little bit, like kind of the two things together, both the Bowl of the Winds and Kalendor in its craziness, and Kalendor being Kalendor.
Yeah,
made things just really unmanageable.
To me, I like what you're saying about it possibly being caused by the Bowl of the Winds.
Yeah.
I guess the thing, and this is kind of what I was just getting at when I was doing my notes for this, is it isn't clear what exactly is causing this. Like Sam is saying, I think you can easily infer that it is something caused by Kalendor, but this also makes sense because, after they used the Bowl of the Winds, there were some odd things that were happening. So I don't know. As Adam points out, there weren't these issues with Kalendor at the last battle.
Or in the Stone of Tyr.
Right.
That's something we had talked about before.
Right. Yeah. So his second question is regarding Kalendor itself. He says, "I remember reading that Cadsuane saying that the sword that is not a sword is flawed, but I also remember reading that the reason was because the limiter that protects the user from drawing too much power was missing, which may be how it can amplify channeling all 3 powers. Did I make this up or am I missing something?" And no, that's true. That
seems like that's probably something that's revealed later, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that, like you're saying, I can't remember if it's explicitly said in that chapter where she reveals that.
I don't think it is. I don't
think it is either.
Yeah, what she says there is that it cannot be controlled by a man. It has to be controlled by a woman in a circle with a man. But I don't remember that about the limiter. That does sound right, but it sounds like something that's revealed in another part of the series.
Yes. Yeah. I'm fairly certain that is the case. That it's like almost all the other Angreal, Terangreal, whatever, they have like a governor that stops the user from hurting themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah. And a Kalendor is a Sangreal, and so
Right.
like even without a limiter, you just handle a ton of the power.
Right.
So it would just take a lot, I guess.
I think that's that's part of what the woman channeling is able to add is the control. Anyway, he closes by saying, "Thanks for responding and keep being awesome." And thank you for
Appreciate
emailing.
that, man. Yeah. Good stuff. Very good email. Lots of thought provoking
Yeah.
things in there.
So, but yeah, that's our show update episode.
Thanks for listening, everybody. As we mentioned at the beginning, you can partner with us in donation if you so choose. tsmpodcast.com. Click the yellow donate button at the top. This will help us keep the podcast going. If you have questions, comments, corrections, or a really great squash casserole recipe, you can also fill in our contact form or email us, tsmpodcast.com, stuff@tsmpodcast.com. You can find us on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Definitely not TikTok. At Podcast TSM. Follow us there for updates about the show and join in the conversation. Thanks again, and Tai'Shar Manethrin.